For example, when I was at the course for my match analyst qualification, some companies showed us the software they were working on, where it essentially imagine like the players have this energy bar. So one of the coaches on the bench has an iPad, and all the players are being tracked at the same time. And each player had like an energy bar that was dependent on statistics from that game.
Cormac, when you, so keeping aside your professional commitments, do you analyze players playing professionally in let's say the top clubs? Do you do personal analysis on players, or do you do team analysis of some of the bigger teams? Is that something that you do frequently for in order for it to help in your job?
So if I do player analysis or team analysis at top level, it's usually linked to football meta. So if I'm doing an analysis for a team, if I'm working on my next video, but definitely watching any team that I'm trying to analyze for the channel has helped me in my professional career as well. Because the more football you watch at high level, the more it helps you understand what a team at a lower level is doing wrong, and then how you can maybe translate that to players' different skill set at a lower level, and how you can translate that. Obviously, sometimes, for example, I did a video on my last video was on Jude Bellingham at Real Madrid. Obviously, players with that amount of talent, it's hard to then translate that to someone in maybe the fourth or fifth division, because the thought process is just completely different. Some things that a player like Bellingham can do, someone at fourth division just doesn't even think of doing. But it definitely does help. I'd say the other way around as well. So watching a lot of, if I can say it, terrible football, so fourth division, fifth division football, which isn't that entertaining to watch, but watching that helps you understand what good teams do as well. So just the speed of a pass, the speed of thought, their positioning, their ability to receive the ball and instantly turn and attack forward is something that's very undervalued or underappreciated in the modern game, that I think is extremely important. It's not just tactics, but also a player's ability to pass the ball effectively and quickly and gain a tempo on the opposition is extremely important.
And again, as young footballers, budding footballers, or people starting to watch it, a lot of these fancy flicks fascinate us, or these step overs. But I think just your first start, your awareness of just shifting into spaces, as probably, I think, as I've grown up and played more, I think those are probably the most important things. Just your awareness of space, your ability to just move away from your first touch. I think those are some of the most underrated things that separate the elite from, let's say, someone who plays in the third division.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's something you'd see so often, is maybe a player's really good dribbler, he's really good at beating his man, but he receives the ball and his body shape is just wrong, and he just loses that half a second that someone maybe in the Premier League doesn't lose. So if you're watching, I don't know, Salah, as soon as he receives the ball, he's already running at the fullback. Like, he doesn't waste a second. But then someone in a lower division, obviously, he receives the ball, he puts it down, and then he's like, okay, now I attack. It's not as smooth and it's not as quick, and that's just one of the biggest differences between quality between a professional player and a semi-professional.
Just one player that pops up in my mind is Riyad Mahrez. How he just, if he's receiving a pass, even from a volleyed pass received by him, I think just the first touch that he takes away from the opposition fullback, I think that is the difference between an elite player who probably someone from the second division would have taken a first touch, would have probably passed the ball back. So I think those are the little things that ultimately make a difference, right?
Exactly, yeah. And then if I can add something else on this, something that I found lower league players do, or semi-professional players do, is that maybe they are good footballers, but they sometimes feel like they are better footballers than they actually are as well. So they'll try and do something a bit trickier when they should just play a simple pass. And like at a lower level, the simple things are extremely hard to do, because everyone wants to stand out, everyone wants to impress the coach. And it's more of a like, okay, I've got the ball, but if I dribble the fullback, I look cooler, and that's better for the team than if I just pass it to someone who can then cross it into the box. So that's something you see a lot, and something that's difficult to get into people's heads is just do the simple thing first, and then if there's space, if there's time, then try to do the not even the cool thing, but try and dribble every now and then, but just be simple and effective. That's definitely the biggest tip I could give to any semi-professional footballer.
100, truer words have never been spoken, and that is something you realize once, sort of grow up as well. So yeah, for everyone who's, 14, 15, 16, you're at the right age. Just, I think, focus on the more important, simpler things. And I think the trickeries can come along the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So Cormac, from the time that you started, with football analysis or match analysis, how has football, even the analysis bit changed? Because a lot of newer terms or a lot of new data points have come up.
Mm.
Something like an XG, XA, all of those things. So from your time, the last 5-6 years that you've been in the industry, how has analysis changed?
That's a really good question, actually. The biggest difference, I would say, is down to statistics and how important statistics are becoming. Season by season, they're just changing and evolving and becoming way more important. I think, especially now with the whole trend in AI and data, machine learning algorithms, they're being implemented in football as well, and they're just changing how we look at football. And then I know a lot of people, because I get the comments on my channel as well, they don't care about statistics. The only thing they care about is who scored more goals. Because I mean, they're right. At the end of the day, that is the only thing that matters. But I think that's overlooking such a huge part of the game and such an important part of the game. That's definitely the biggest change that I've noticed, especially in the past few seasons. Now, there's even in the division I was working with last season, so the 4th division, not our team, but there was a team in that league who had an automatic camera that would film the whole match. And then this camera was able to pick up the passes, the shots, everything by itself. So even at a lower level, a team had access to basic statistics that could help the team improve where they were taking chances from, where they weren't taking chances from. So it's just becoming way more prevalent at a lower level. And that means at the top level as well, some of the metrics that are available are just insane. The amount of data being used in football now is insane. And for example, when I was at the course for my match analyst qualification, some companies showed us the software they were working on, where it essentially, imagine like the players have this energy bar. So one of the coaches on the bench has an iPad, and all the players are being tracked at the same time. And each player had like an energy bar that was dependent on statistics from that game. And as they ran more, as they did more, the energy bar would change and shift. And then the managers on the bench would get hints on when they should change the players, when they should change systems, stuff like that. Obviously, in beta, cannot mention the name of the company is everything, but it's cool to see where football is potentially going. Yeah.
And European football is obviously way ahead. For someone like, for me personally, hearing this, I think this is so fascinating, because I think in a way it's also saddening, because I know, we are very behind when it comes to Indian or football in India. We're quite behind, obviously European football. And I think these are the sort of, inputs, data points are something that needs to be inculcated in Indian football, right? And just very fascinating. I think that was my base, or my why of doing this interview with you as well, was just knowing what goes on when it comes to the top tier of football, top leagues of football. So okay, Cormac, so there would be a school of thought, right? Let's say even if 85-90% people are saying, this minute detailing of data, of statistics is, great for football, there would be some, a school of thought saying, this might hamper the, the beauty of the sport in a way, or, there are things that statistics will never, catch, or statistics will never understand, right? So where do you stand on this debate? Like, do you think this actually should exist, it exists, or where do you incline personally?
Personally, I'm in favor of it. I like technology. I like to see the limits of what performance can be. So if there's technology and there's data that can help a team improve and become extremely efficient and much better, then I'm all for it. However, I do understand other people's point of view, where in some sense it is killing a certain element of creativity, because players are starting to function more and more on rails. It's like, you have to do this movement at this exact time. You have to make this defensive run to cover. So there is definitely a lot less creativity in modern football compared to maybe 20 years ago, where, let's say, the number 10 was prevalent and you had these creative playmakers. That's a role that's obviously a lot less frequent in the modern game. So, yeah, in some sense, maybe football is a lot more predictable. It makes our jobs as analysts slightly easier because you can start to recognize patterns a lot more frequently in how teams play. But at the same time, I think it's good for the sport as a whole. And good or bad, I think it's inevitable that technology is just going to take over and just become bigger and bigger. So there's no point fighting it because it's not going anywhere. It's only going to get more important. So yeah, personally, I'm all for it. I enjoy it, and I'm curious to see how it changes football. Because I think, if you can see football, if you watch football as a journey, so how it was 100 years ago to how it is now, maybe right now you're not a big fan of the statistics and everything, but then in 10 years' time you'll look at today and you'll be like, oh wow, this is how people played football, and then you watch it in the 2030 and it's completely different to how it was. And I really enjoyed that process of how football changes. One thing I did recently, I watched the Brazil-France World Cup final. What was it, 98? Yeah. Honestly, watch it. Great game of football, but it makes no sense compared to how football is played today. It's completely different, honestly. And it's cool to watch it and be like, I can't believe this is what tactics were 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Yeah.
And you look at those Dutch teams of the Ajax team, pressing everyone, 10 players, you just it's so insane just thinking of it right now, right?
Yeah, definitely. But that's the beauty of it. Like maybe now they'll look back in 10 years' time, we'll look back and be like, Klopp was gegenpressing. It's like, what the hell is that? Like, I don't know. Like now it seems so natural, it seems normal, but maybe football will change and be like, that was a stupid tactic or something. I don't know.
Okay, so Cormac, talking about you personally, so has there been a moment where you if your analysis on a particular team or an opposition has been absolutely spot on, and that has been probably one of the more fulfilling days of your job? So have you had those instances where certain pointers that you've given have just worked out perfectly for the team?
I've got a good example, but it's the complete opposite of. So it was the first video I got to present to the team last season. So it was around November, October. So the manager had done the first few videos, but this was the first one that I led and presented to the team. And I said, okay, the team we're playing against now, they don't do anything. They just kick the ball long and they look for corners and free kicks because they're really good at corners and free kicks. So I showed them the video, did everything I said. So whatever you do, when this player has the ball, he's going to kick it long and they're going to get corner and they're going to try and score from the corner. So I said, just don't concede from a corner. The first minute we conceded from a corner exactly like that. The player kicked it long and it went out and we conceded from the corner. And I was kind of happy in a way because I said, I knew this was going to happen. But at the same time, it didn't work because we did exactly what was going to happen. But then, other times it's gone better as well. I'd say the biggest impact you can see is if you're analyzing how a team defends. And in one video I said, okay, this fullback's not very good. Let's try and overload this fullback. So our fullback, you push up more frequently and we'll double up with our winger and we'll see if we can create a 2v1 out wide. And then there was a game I said that and then they did that and then we scored a goal. And that was really, really satisfying for me as well. So there are definitely moments where it pays off. Others, obviously, where you analyze a team, you present to the team, and then the team shows up with 11 different players, a completely different formation, and maybe you win the game, maybe you lose the game, but then your analysis can also be detrimental because you've said that they're going to do something and then they do something completely different. So we're not, as analysts, we're not gurus, we're not future predictors or anything. I mean, it could go any way. At the end of the day, it is football and it changes all the time.
So, Cormac, what for you has been your biggest challenge in terms of your job, or as an analyst, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face on an everyday basis? Something that, if I want to become an analyst, something that I should know personally.
Lots of little things from my, okay, I'll start from the silly ones and then I'll move up to more serious one, but my internet isn't great. So I have to download a lot of matches and it just takes ages to once you have the match of the opposition, I have to wait like an hour before I can watch it. So little things like that. I'd recommend you have good internet. then yeah, if the game isn't filmed properly, that slows down your work a lot, and it's frustrating, and it's a challenge to try and analyze the opposition. Again, especially at lower levels, games are filmed in all different ways, and it's really difficult to understand maybe how a player on the opposite side of the pitch is playing, because they're this big and they don't really touch the ball much. And I'd say, yeah, those are kind of like everyday kind of frustrating things that you might encounter. When it comes to bigger frustrating things, I'd say maybe sometimes the team doesn't care too much. Again, at a semi-professional level, these players are coming from work and then they're coming to training. They just want to play football. So if they have to sit there for 10, 15 minutes and watch a video on a team that's last in the league, they haven't scored a goal all season, but you're still telling them how they play, sometimes it can get quite frustrating for them. And then for you, it's annoying as well, because you spent all week working on the video. You want it to be as useful as possible for the team, but they just don't really care. And that's no one's fault. That's just how it is. So yeah, not always is your work going to be appreciated, but that should never discourage you from making it as good as possible and keeping the level and the quality as high as possible, because one day they will want to watch the video. They do watch the video, and it does help them.
Well,
so
makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say these are the most the challenges that you might face. Sometimes, yeah, you work a lot, but it doesn't really get appreciated too much.
And in terms of your employment, so are you employed for the course of the season? Is it a contractual employment, or is it for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? Is there certain terms and conditions to every analyst?
Again, depends by the club, depends on the team philosophy, everything. For me personally, it's always been 1 year contracts. But then, as you know, football can change very quickly. So if a team isn't going well, I mean, and the manager gets sacked, I've always been brought into a team with the manager that I've been working with. So if it luckily it never happened, but if they do get sacked, then that means the analyst would usually also get removed from the club as well. It depends. You have two different types of analysts. You have the analysts that work with the coach and follow the coach around, and then you have club analysts as well, who are with the club. Regardless of the manager that comes in, they work for the club and are there always.
Understood. And so, Cormac, what is next for you? Or what do you plan to do? Do you have coaching in mind? Is being an analyst something that you plan to do for the long run? What is your bit for it? Like, what do you plan to do in the next couple of years?
Right now, I'm really enjoying the whole YouTube journey, the whole football meta content thing. That's arguably my main focus right now. But then I'm working on a second channel, which hopefully I should be able to start relatively soon, interviewing coaches and more real life content. So filming training sessions, getting the whole idea behind why a coach chooses specific training exercises and what that links back to the match. So I'm trying to get that started. It's quite difficult to get the coaches always agree, but then there's always the club behind it that have to say, oh yeah, you can come film and everything. So yeah, hopefully I can get that out soon, but it might take some time. And then eventually, yeah, I always plan on doing my coaching badges and just always trying to develop that side of the game. And then I'd say long-term, working in football for a club would be the objective, let's say. But yeah, I'm not too worried about 5-10 years. I'm just working right now, see what happens, and then go from there, really.
Right. And just, in terms of the final, but there's just something that I really want everyone to know. When you're doing those, certifications or those courses for, becoming an analyst, what is exactly in those courses? And, if you could tell me what the curriculum looks like, if that is something that you can disclose.
So it depends on the course that you sign up to. There's a lot of private courses and a lot of courses that you find online that will talk about performance analysis, some of which are very good. But it depends. The majority of it would be, at least for the course that I did with the Italian FA, mostly focused on a big part of it was statistics and the use of statistics in the modern game. A big part of it was filming, the practical side of it. And then a big part of it was also tactics. And so I'm trying to think of how to best explain it. But you'd have one lesson where it would be okay, all about the 4-3-3 and how that lines up against the 4-4-2 and the different counterplay that these could create. And then one lesson, for example, we'd watch just one goal, and then we'd talk about that one goal for the whole hour and explain what player made a mistake, what player did something good. And it was a lot of conversation, a lot of managers sharing their own experience and what they expect their analysts to be able to do. But it varies a lot depending on the course, depending on the country.
And did you get to meet any famous, coach or manager during your course, or have you gotten a chance to talk to a top manager?
Not at the course. There were a few that were around during the lessons, but as in the facilities, they were there. So Mancini was there when we were doing the lessons, but I didn't get a chance to meet him and speak to him. Other than some of the coaches that were giving the lessons, who were some historic coaches from the 80s and 90s in Italian football. But other than that, unfortunately, no, I didn't get to meet anyone directly during the course.
And is there someone particular that you really look up to, in terms of analysis, in terms of coaching? Do you have your mentor? Is that something that you recommend people?
I'd say definitely, if you can, as an analyst, if you're able to work with a coach directly and not with a club, then you're going to learn so much more. Because if you have the possibility of working with a coach and following him in different clubs, then you can get to understand different club environments, different club philosophies, and that's really going to help you understand how different players interact between themselves and everything. So that would be my biggest tip or something. If you can move around and go to a lot of different clubs, that's going to give you a richer understanding of football. Mentor, yeah, I the two coaches I worked with at Lazio, so Alessandro Calori and Vinicio Espinal, two managers that I keep in touch with all the time. We speak a lot. Planning on doing videos with them on the channel as well, so should be really interesting. But yeah, definitely I try and every coach I meet, I try and keep an active relationship going, because you never know when it could help.
And I hope those videos are in English, because I'd absolutely love to see those.
Oh, it might be subtitles. Yeah, I don't think they speak English.
I think that is one struggle that I definitely have. There are a lot of good videos out there, but a lot of them, have, I've seen a bunch of your videos specifically in Italian. So that's been a challenge. But yes, Cormac, thank you so much. I think it's been an absolute honor. I think this was such a lovely, 50 odd minutes that I've gotten to spend. And I think the idea, when I first thought, I'm going to have this discussion, this interview with you, I had absolutely, clarity in mind that what would I want to, hear from Cormac. And I think I got more than that, much more than that. So thank you so much for that. I think I couldn't have had a better person for an episode on football analysis. And if there's a message, let's say there are a lot of budding, footballers in India, or aspirants in India who just want to stay connected to the sport. If you have any small message for all of those Indians out there, because trust me when I say this, the revolution in Indian football is just beginning, and the next 5 to 10 years is where Indian football will totally explode. So people like you, people like other YouTubers out there, I think they play a extremely important role, because right now the infrastructure is not as developed as some of the European countries, right? So for us, the go-to people are YouTubers like you. So just any small message for everyone from India who gets to see this video.
Firstly, thank you for watching. If you're a player, like we discussed earlier in the episode, keep it simple. Don't try and show off and do fancy things. Just do the simple thing effectively and listen to your coach. If you're an analyst, don't be afraid to start any internship, even if it's unpaid. If you're able to do it alongside some other job, or just even if it's just a part-time thing after school, you just film the matches. Anything that can get you started in football is a step in the right direction. And then, yeah, once you're in a club, it all gets easier, because you start to make contacts and you'll just meet people along the way. And the first step is by far the hardest. But once you're in, trust me, you won't want to leave. It's good fun. It's a lot of work, but it's good fun. So, yeah, keep going. I hope to see India win a World Cup in the next, 20 years, 15 years, maybe?
Fingers crossed. The idea is to qualify for the 2034 World Cup. I think that is the short term, the middle term goal, if I may say. But again, I think better things are happening in Indian football. I think with the top tier league now, much more stabilized, the Indian Super League. So I think things are much better. But at least 10, 15 years more to go for Indian football to start living up to the potential that the 1.4, 1.5 billion people have.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of pool of talent to choose from. So
Correct.
if football does take off, then definitely you could really become a powerhouse in football. I mean, it does take time. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much, Cormac. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I love to stay connected. And for everyone who wants to connect to Cormac, just look for Football Meta. I think, trust me when I say this, it's by far one of the best channels on YouTube related to football. A lot of notes that I actually take are from his channel. So Cormac, I think apart from being an inspiration, you are my go-to person in terms of just notes. So thank you so much for that. And I hope to see you soon again, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, mate. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, it was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video. There is a lot of great content coming up, and feel free to share if you have any suggestion for the video. But when I say this, that Cormac's interview was one of the most wonderful interviews I've done till date. And just follow Cormac on YouTube, on Instagram. There's a lot to learn from him. And subscribe to Football Unplugged with me, Satvik, for more such videos. Thank you so much.